Yes. Can you hear me? Perfect. Let's get started. My name is Lars Jakobsen, and I work at Novanet, a .NET consultancy here in Oslo. Today I'm going to tell you about Cypress and how you can integrate Cypress in your continuous integration pipelines. I only have 10 minutes, so it's a big topic, and I'm just going to get started. So why should you use automated UI tests? Well, there are several reasons. First of all, they're really fast, much faster than any human can do manual tests. This will enable you to deploy more frequently and be more confident in deploying your new features without risking affecting existing features. The second reason is that automated tests are precise, meaning they will run exactly the same every time. When testing manually, tests are prone to human error. Did a tester skip a step, or did they forget to input a value? Automated tests are more precise than a human can be. Lastly, manual testing is not scalable. When your application evolves and more features are added, the time and resources spent on testing also increases. That's why you need fast and precise automated tests. So why don't every development team do automated UI tests? Well, there's an initial cost of developing the tests. You're already doing unit testing, integration testing, many other tests possibly. And so adding another set of tests will require even more time writing tests instead of features. But when you have all your UI tests in place, you still have to maintain and update the UI tests every time the UI changes. You have to continuously work on your UI tests as the application evolves. And then if you manage to keep up your tests up to date, and even if you manage to keep your tests up to date, there's no guarantee that you will cover every scenario. There might be edge cases and user interaction that you didn't think of when writing the tests. These edge cases might have been discovered if you did the manual testing. But if you decide to go for Cypress as for automated UI tests, there's a lot of advantages of using it. Firstly, it's lightweight, more lightweight than like Selenium. You write your tests in JavaScript, which is familiar for a lot of developers. And you can run the test from command line, making it easy to run the tests on your local machine, on a server, or even in a continuous integration pipeline. And lastly, Cypress supports a lot of major browsers like Chrome and Edge and Firefox, so you can test across browsers. In addition, Cypress has a lot of great features, like the possibility to stub or mock your APIs, and I'll cover that later. You can time travel, meaning that you can step through your test and go back and see every step that's been done by the test. It also supports real-time reloads or hot reloading. Cypress will detect changes in your test and then run them again. You can also debug the test code with debug tools that you're familiar with, like Chrome DevTools or something like that. So let's try to do a demo. It's going to be a pretty short demo of Cypress because I don't have that much time. So let's see. I've created this small site, just a register form that you can fill in with some data. And you come to a new page that says success. So I've written a test for this site. So basically, when you install Cypress, you get a lot of folders, and one folder for the tests. In that folder, there's some examples that you can look at to see different things and features of Cypress. But you'll probably delete that when you get started. But the real test is here. It starts by describing what you're going to test, and it's the register form. Then you can hook up to this kind of life cycle hooks and say that before each test, we're going to visit this URL. You also see that we're using the Cypress environmental variables, which is down in the Cypress configuration file. So you can like switch the URL depending on what environment you're testing. Then I've started writing a couple of really simple tests. The first one is checking that it displays correctly. I find this title element on the page and check that it's registered today. And I check that there's one submit button. The second test actually starts filling out the form. So you can see you can use these CSS selectors to select HTML element. And then you can do things to it, like typing in it, selecting it, checking it, clicking it. And lastly, we have like an assertion that the title on the next page should be success. So it's a fairly simple test. There's a lot of more features in Cypress that you have to check out on your own. But let's see it in action. I've started running Cypress, and it's already run automatically, but we'll try to run it again. So you see that it starts typing, and I've added a delay, so it's easier to see that it's doing it on its own. And it's typing in and clicking submit, and all the asserts that it displays correctly, and we land on the success page is in place. So all our tests are working. Then you can do the time travel feature and step back in the test to see everything that's happened. So you can go through each step, and you see the asserts, and you see what it selects and how it is. So you can do this, and you can run it again and again, and even faster than this if you skip the delay part. So that's the very short demo of Cypress. For all the features, you have to check it out yourself. Let's see if we get it up again. So where should you start? If you're like starting from scratch, you could write tests for everything. But if you have an existing systems, you should start with the core features. Maybe something like the user sign-in, that's really important, or something like the checkout process in a web shop. So all the features that's really important for your business to function. Also, you should start with features that are pretty stable and won't change a lot. Because if you start testing something that you expect to change a lot, you'll have to update your test, as I said previously. As I mentioned, Cypress supports stubbing, or stubbing your APIs or mocking your APIs, meaning that you can intercept the API or HTTP calls and make them return the responses that you want them to. So should you use Cypress for like end-to-end testing and call your APIs, or should you mock your APIs and only test the UI logic? Well, that depends what you're trying to achieve. You can use Cypress for both. In the projects that I've used Cypress, we've always stubbed out the APIs. This to make sure that the tests run exactly the same every time, and it's not dependent on data from an API. Also, stubbing won't make you have to do any like sort of cleanup or reset of the database if you made changes to the data. So now the cool part, integrating Cypress in your continuous integration pipeline. Basically, you go to your pipeline, you install Cypress with npm, you run them from command line, and if the tests fail, the whole pipeline breaks. So you can skip deploying to the next environment, or you can do something with deployment slot and test the stage slot and then switch them if your tests succeed. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So I go into Azure DevOps and straight into my YAML pipeline. Oh, sorry. I have to stop that one. Go to that one. Better? Perfect. So Azure DevOps pipeline. So the first stage is just to deploy my small application to app service in the stage slot. So that's pretty straightforward. Then we come into the Cypress stuff. Basically, we start with doing a file transform just to switch the URL from the local URL to the stage slot URL. Then we do some caching of the Cypress packages. You don't have to do it, but your pipeline will run faster if you cache the packages. Then we install some packages, and we verify that the Cypress has been installed. And then we run and record all the tests in the pipeline. So if the last step here breaks because one of the tests doesn't work, the pipeline will break. And it won't continue to the next step, which is swapping the stage slot that you already just tested into the production slot. So then you can test even your production environment with Cypress by testing the stage slot first. I'll try to get back to my, There. The last thing I wanted to cover is Cypress Dashboard. It's a paid service from Cypress that allows you to record and store all your test runs. The test runs will be available in the Cypress Dashboard, and it's especially useful if you have non-developers that want to monitor the tests. They'll be able to get like notifications if they fail. They can go into the dashboard and see what actually failed and step through the tests. And they can see screenshots and videos if you set it up. And you can see video of the actual test running. So we'll just shortly go into the Cypress dashboard. So here you see all the runs that's been made. It's basically the same as all the pipeline runs. I'm not like a really professional presenter. There you have the Cypress dashboard. So it's basically the same runs as you have in your DevOps pipelines, because all the pipelines will trigger a Cypress test. So you can go into one of these runs. You'll probably have more than 2 tests, but it's the same test that I showed you previously. And you can go into each test, see what failed, go to the steps, see what step failed, and you can even watch videos and see screenshots if you've set that up. So we're not going to see it now, but that's basically it. And it's a nice feature that's really good for a team where not everybody can run tests on their local computer. So basically, that's all from me. It's a really brief introduction to Cypress. You should check it out. I really like it, and it can test a lot of stuff in your web applications. So thank you for listening. Contact me if you have any questions, some info there. And you can meet me down at the Novanet stand in the expo area. So thank you very much.